technical difficulties, but we're so glad to actually be back with each and every one of you guys. Please let us know if you're actually experiencing any issues or whatsoever, but we are back. Welcome back to the show. It is the Rico No Suave show. And yes, we're going to actually talk a little bit more about Hollywood again. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that. So we're going to bring that flyer back up. Let's bring that Hollywood poster back up, everybody. Yes, if you don't know who she is, that is Fran Drescher from The Nanny. She is the president right now of SAG-AFTRA, and she is doing her best to make sure that everything is actually perfect, ready to go, because I know everyone is ready to come back. So I'm just going to read just a little bit about the guild. So the guild is still reviewing a proposal. A well-positioned SAG-AFTRA member tells the deadline. Now, this was updated on November 5th. Following a brief virtual meeting with CEOs on Saturday, guild leaders continued to look over what they so-called last, best, and final offer the studios put on the table, which is going to be this coming Friday. Now, this was updated exactly on the 5th itself. So it's super, super, super great news to at least to have something actually on the table for SAG-AFTRA and go from there. So I'm super happy to hear that. So I guess my word today is super. I guess that's what it is. Yes, I guess that's what it is. So everybody just continue to hold on to your seats, because definitely they're going to be back. And I know all of the screenwriters, all of the producers, all of the directors are ready to get back to work. And I'm praying and I'm hoping that they come up with a really great deal for everyone to actually enjoy. All right, everybody, we got to get right. We have to get right into the show. We have this guy, man. I have to tell you, listen, I had a chance to be able to talk to him. And when it comes down to talking about classical, when we're talking about classical music, we talk about discipline, but we're also going to be talking about this gentleman's journey as well too. This guy, when it comes to playing the violin, he takes it to heart, and we take it to heart when we actually listen to his music. And also, one of the things is that this gentleman has been traveling over, and yeah, you're going to hear a little bit about his 5 brothers that he actually played with as well too. I want you guys to stand up, even if you don't have a violin, just act like you're playing it for him and show him some love. Put your hands together for none other than the violinist. His name is Artem Kolesov. Let's go. Yeah, baby. Hey, Artem, are you there?
I'm here.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm super happy to actually have you here. And thank you so much for being here on the show, on the Rico No Suave show, because, we're about to have a good time, man. We're about to have a blast. And I want the whole audience to know a lot about you today. So I know that, we're on time, but we're always on time for some great conversation. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about, why did you choose the violin?
Well, it's sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of echo again, but I'm
Okay.
gonna turn myself down a little bit.
No, you're good. We got it on our end. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Um, well, it's an interesting question because I grew up in a family that my parents are not musicians at all.
Hmm.
My father, as we call in Russian, we say that a bear stepped on his ear. That's what we say when someone is, as they say, tone deaf. But all of my brothers played musical instruments growing up. I'm number 4 out of 6 boys in my family. So I just kind of decided to play violin because there was a violinist at one of the performances that my family went to, and she became my teacher. So that's how I ended up playing violin, because I just really liked the instrument.
Hmm.
And for about a year, I tortured my mother. When I was 5 years old, I would pretend that I was playing violin. I would take a clothes hanger, and my family also had those really old school, very traditional Russian. What are they called? Like the sweeping. Um, they're made out of a bunch of branches and like
Oh
hay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yes, yes,
The
yes, yes.
sweeping
I know
sword.
exactly what you're
No,
talking about.
yeah. And I would take a stick out of it and I would pretend that this was my bow. And so I guess after a year of buying more and more of those because I kept ruining them by pulling out the little pieces of you know of them out. My mom just couldn't stand that. She had to constantly buy, um, you know, one after the other, and she decided to put me into violin. She said that it is a very difficult instrument and that it requires a lot of patience. So, we kind of went into it with thinking that I will probably not continue.
Yeah.
And here I am, more than 20 years later at this point.
Man,
Yeah. So,
that's love, and we're not going to jump right away to the 20 years already.
right.
We can't jump right away. But what I will say is this: there's certain things that people come out with to be able to learn about a certain instrument, right? And I
Hmm.
loved your analogy because you were picking something off of kind of like we call it rakes. We call them a rake here, right?
Right. Mm.
And or we have a broom, right? Our
Room.
brooms, right? We'll take something out of a broom and we'll try to use it. But I love the analogy that you actually use to be able to at least force your mom to get you a violin, which is cool because that's like, hey mom, you got to get me this, or you ain't gonna have no more brooms or no more rakes in the house.
For sure.
I I like that. I like that. So your first violin, uh, what year was that, and how was your first violin?
Yeah. So I think for this, I might go into a little bit of what kind of family I grew up in.
Yep.
And it's going to be, it might get a little bit into like more socio-political
It's okay.
situation
No
that
worries.
that Russia and a lot of post-Soviet states were going through in the 90s. So I was born in 1994, um, you know, just to
Okay.
put my age out there.
No, it's all
Uh,
good.
and and as you might know, those places like Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, a lot of other uh, states and places on Earth that used to be together in the Soviet Union, they were going through some of the worst economic situations that in recent history. You
Hmm.
know, um, and for for us, I guess for my family, before I was even born, one of the ways to find community and to cope with this situation, because it was very scary. It was called a lot of people call this gangster capitalism because
Mm.
it was very scary to go on the streets. There were a lot of gangs. People were surviving. Everyone. I was talking recently to some of my friends who also grew up in Russia, and they said that they're a little bit older than me, so they actually remember the 90s. I
Hmm.
don't remember much of it. I just kind of, I was still, I was just born into
Right.
this, you know. And
Right.
they said that it was very much like everyone for themselves. So there was no community. And so a way for my family to find community was that uh, they joined the church, and a lot of Christian missionaries from the United States were visiting these places. And actually, there's recently I saw some studies that it's a very common thing for Christian missionaries to go to places that experience conflict or any kind of tragedy or catastrophe.
Hmm.
Uh, but 4 years before it happens and 4 years after, which is really interesting because that's exactly what happened to my family. And they started going to this evangelical church that was started by, um, white Southern Christians in Russia, which is very strange to hear. I know, uh,
Wow.
and I grew up with like very often until about the age of 10, until we moved to a bigger city. I grew up in a very small town called Malaya. Sorry, it's very hard to switch between
No,
Russian and English.
it's all good.
They're very different. So Malaya, it's about 101 kilometers from Moscow. And during the 90s, it was used as an overflow city to put nonviolent offenders to live in this city. So there were two, it was kind of like it existed as two towns, one where all these people were kind of locked up, and were not allowed to leave this place, and another place where it was more recent development, um, and a lot more working class people lived in. So I lived in both. I first lived with my grandmother, who lived in the more of a prison town.
Wow.
There isn't really like an equivalent for this, I guess, here in the U.S.
No, it's either you in jail or that's it.
Right. I mean, one could argue, that there isn't an equivalent. But so for me, it was interesting because when my mother would tell me that there are all these scary things outside and I should just play my violin, it was a very real threat of, I could see these things out my window, right, happening. I could,
Wow.
people were shooting and it was scary. There were drugs being sold. And so my mother, before I was born, several years before I was born, she went to buy potatoes at the store, at the grocery store. And I think it's very important for people to understand that when these kind of things happen, when a country is getting destroyed, it doesn't just happen overnight, right? It doesn't. You just don't wake up and the next morning, like it doesn't exist, right? And I
Right.
feel like in the West we have this, like I've been hearing a lot of this narrative that the Soviet Union just collapsed, as if it was just like a house made out of cards, and a wind blew and it just kind of fell apart,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
But people need to understand that it was a deliberate, um, you know, effort by many, many different places on Earth to undermine people's livelihoods. And people need to understand that millions of people have suffered from it and are still continuing to suffer from it
Mm.
worldwide. This affected many places, not just, people that live in Russia or Ukraine or Kazakhstan and so on. And so this is my very long-winded way to explain why and
Sure.
how I started violin. So when my mom went to get the potatoes, the store was actually on a lunch break, and my mom decided she was with my two older brothers, who are 9 and 8 years older than me. And
Okay.
so they went together and they started reading these posters while they were waiting for the people at the store to return from lunch. And one of the posters that they found was like inviting people to join this community evangelical service. And my mom was actually an atheist until about the age of 25, and she had never heard of anything like this. And you know, looking for a place where she could feel like she could have community.
Mm-hmm.
So before I I used to be angry at my mother sometimes for because I am a queer person, and
Sure.
so my family does not accept who I am,
Right.
and haven't spoken in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, as I started learning about these things and what actually happened and analyzing, what my family went through, I started realizing that it's much deeper than that, and that it was something that was in part imported into our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm not talking that, I'm not saying that religion is bad.
Sure.
I'm an adult and I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
respect people and their views. But I think that there is a certain element of um, exclusivity, and I do think that to some degree it is tied to white supremacy that
Mm-hmm.
is in evangelical Christianity. So um, there were a lot of really great musicians in our church.
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting to.
Yep. Yep.
Right. Um,
It's all good.
and so one of them was a violinist. So he was a young teenage violinist who was studying in the formerly socialist education system in
Yeah.
Russia. And
Mm-hmm.
so I actually got to experience a little bit of the socialist education. By the time that I was born, a lot of these things were completely dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually like to show my birth certificate to some of my friends. So maybe the next time you visit LA, I can show you my birth certificate because
Yeah, that would be
uh,
cool.
it's really interesting because when I was born, which was 1994, which is 2 years after the Soviet Union was destroyed, um, it actually birth certificates from the Soviet Union were still being used for people who were being born in modern Russia. So the
Interesting.
like my
Wow.
birth certificate still says that I was born in the Soviet Union,
Wow.
just because it was in such a big disarray,
Uh-huh.
and I'm also talking about this right now because I feel like there's a lot of instability in the world, and a lot of people are feeling, what's going to happen, in our lives. So I like to kind of share this anecdote with people to kind of let them know how quickly things happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I was born 1994, and until I was 8 years old, Russian government did not have time to come up with. They were so busy doing their other things that were not helping people. You
Yeah.
know, but they were very busy doing whatever that they didn't come up with a law that made me a citizen of Russia until I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So, and it's not until I was 10 that my family received an addendum. So my birth certificate actually contains an addendum that my family received from the Russian government when I was 10 years old. So in 2004, a few months after my 10th birthday, I got an addendum that said that I am officially recognized as a citizen of Russia because the law was passed in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally they sent out these addendums to us. So imagine for 10 years, I technically didn't have a citizenship and
Right.
I technically didn't belong to any country. So,
Wow.
and this to show you just how fast things happen, but at the same time, I was still able to benefit from a lot of the free education that my brothers who grew up in the Soviet Union and who were children in the Soviet Union, they got to experience. And like, for example, my first violin was given to me by my music school that was in my community.
Okay.
And there was actually a violin teacher in my building, but my very first, she was not my very first teacher because when I went to have our first lesson, where she, like a trial lesson with her, she kind of scared me because as a child, I had a lot of learning disability,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them was dyslexia. And sometimes when I get really stressed, I like cannot put things together.
Sure. Sure.
So, and one of the things that was really challenging to me is suddenly having to do all these new concepts that I never really thought about it, before, like clap this rhythm back to me, or like sing this note, or like find this note on the piano. And when you're a little child, like a 5-year-old, it's very scary, and you know, kind of all
Wow.
these things being thrown at you. And this teacher, when I failed her exam, she
Mm-hmm.
actually told my parents that I'm probably never going to be a musician.
Wow.
And so, um, for me, I I wouldn't say that I did things like in spite of this person, because for the rest of like my life from that point on, I often heard from people that, oh, you will never be this, or you will never be able to do this, you know. And so far, like I was also told once by my English teacher right before I went to Canada to study violin. I was told by my English teacher that I will probably never get past I'm going to and or I'm gonna and I wanna. That's how she said it. So here I
Wow.
am, writing academic papers in English.
Yeah. I
So
the reason your story is, how can I say, it comes with the struggle of what we call at the very beginning, when you were talking about looking out the window when there was drugs, there was shooting, and we're talking about basically the barrio, right? Or they talk about where it's more of where poverty is.
mhm.
The thing that you know that I understood as far as with your struggle during that time is what certain families go through in order to be able to know where they need to be able to be at in the future. Now, you did talk a little bit when it came to religion. My thing is that in our household, it was a religious thing. There is a religious thing, but then there's also something that's called respect, right? When we talk about religion, there was a way of being disciplined. There was a certain way of actually following certain what they call rules, right? But then
Mhm.
there's also, as you being a human being, as a person, there's still that respect for each other's decisions, right? And whatever decision that the people were actually making within, no matter if it's personality, it doesn't matter as far as who they like, who they love. It shouldn't have mattered, right? It shouldn't have mattered. And I think when we talk about different cultures, we talk about disciplines in regards to, I don't like to say, some people call it like a cult in some religions, where it is a
Hmm.
cult where you only can do just this. And then it kind of feels like you're missing something, right? You're missing something from what you need to be able to see on the outside world. But I like it that you actually went through those things and people had to respect you and your decision, even if it had to come down to family, right? And that's why family, when there's decision that's made within a family, not everybody's going to agree with it. But what you did was you continue to move forward, and then you found that light of the violin where you got your first violin, and it was by a teenager, right? And that was cool. And then a teenager itself was like, okay, let me play something for you, or let me hear it, let me just pay attention to it. I also take the situation of being a kid. When you're actually a kid and you're young, you know how like when you hear your parents say something and you repeat it back, and then it sticks in your head, and all of a sudden you start saying it again. It's like, oh, this person is just picking up everything that I actually have. Well, you kind of took it from what you learned in what we call the body, or we call in the hood, and you actually continue to move forward with not believing what everybody is actually saying, but what your personality and what your talent is all about. So, you know, I commend you. I commend you in regards to that, and who you are as a person and your talent. That is you. That what makes you happen, right?
Thank you.
And man, I'm just like, wow, I'm wow right now. And I hated that we got to take a commercial break. We got to take a
We'll
we
come
got to
back.
take a commercial break, man.
Yeah.
So everybody, you already know we got my man Artem Kolesov here, the violinist, man. We're talking some great stuff. Everybody, we're gonna show you a little video of our social media. We're back in 30 seconds. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back with man Artem Kolesov. We are here, man. I'm telling you the story, man. I am just like in awe. Like this is something that where you go through certain things and it touches people hard to be able to know, like, man, you know what? There was some similarities in regards to the way I grew up, but then also, you know, one thing that that people come onto my show and they say, you know, people always say, well, you won't be able to be this and you won't be able to be that. And then, of course, like yourself, the success story of now look at where I'm at, look what I'm doing. And it's almost like karma. When people tell you something that you can't do, karma's in behind you saying, you know what, Artem, don't even look, you know what, don't even pay attention to that. You know, we got good karma on your back and look at where we're going to take you now. So, man, I definitely commend you in regards to that as well, too, for sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem.
And one of the things that I started looking into when I first moved to North America, with Canada being the first part of my experience in North America. And let me know if I'm talking too much and if you have more questions. I know you do,
I
but
do want to talk about. I will let you go over this. I do want to talk about you and your brothers though. When
yeah.
you get a chance. So if you want to flow into that, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, so actually, I'll try to connect it to. So I have five brothers. I'm number four out of six boys.
Yeah.
And it just happened, you know, my parents were trying for a girl, for, and that's what they got. It was a very loud household. We we had a very small place where we lived. Specifically, when we moved to St. Petersburg, it's a long story, so maybe for another day.
Sure.
We ended up moving to St. Petersburg after, after I turned 10 years old, from this very small community, and through my entire childhood, I think that one of the things that is really interesting to me as well about the when I started learning more about Black and Indigenous art
Yeah.
in North America specifically, is
Yeah.
that there is, and I say this wholeheartedly, that I understand that I will never understand, and what it's like to be a Black person or an Indigenous person, but there are some similarities
Sure.
in certain cultures, specifically with music education, because the way that I was taught music was actually through folk music. And
Nice.
the program that I was taught through was developed by one of my violin teachers that I later met in St. Petersburg. And it focuses on teaching children first the familiar folk songs that they already know. And in our cultures, we learn a lot of folk songs, and then slowly introducing folk songs from other places, from all around the world, because the idea is that different worldviews result in different folk songs and different rhythms, but at the same time, the music and rhythm is what is really connecting us together. And the idea of family, the idea of community, the idea
Yes.
of taking care of your elders and your parents and your loved
Yes.
ones, is a unifying idea. And so for me, that was really like, this is actually something that I'm studying currently at USC. So I got into USC in 2020, right before the pandemic began. And I'm focusing a lot on how folk music helps us learn better, and how the communal experience of experiencing music together, making music together, is
Yes.
actually something that further develops our own abilities in music. So, which is really interesting because, when you think about learning music, when you think about learning an instrument, you often think of a private lesson where it's just you and your teacher,
Right.
right? So, and there are some great benefits to that as well. I'm not
Yep.
saying that it's all bad, you
Yeah.
know, but when I think back on when was the most fun that I had making music and art, and when was, the most that I learned about performance, or when did I strengthen my skills, my oral skills, so listening and being able to reproduce these sounds, it was actually with my community, and so my brothers and I had a little band that we started, and having family from many different places, we would go around Russia and Ukraine. So my grandmother is Crimean Tatar from Crimea, so it's a small ethnicity from Crimea that has been there for centuries at this point. And so we would visit them. We would go to other places where my family has ties to, and we would go to different churches and perform. And so that's basically how I started my musical journey. I wouldn't say career, but you know, as a 5-year-old, I would say just a journey. So I met a lot of different people, and it was really interesting to go to these very small villages, which there were a lot where I grew up, and also in Ukraine, and listening to people's stories and hearing the music, the kind of music that they make, and everyone was very different.
Yeah.
So, and this is something also fascinating to me when I lived in Chicago. Just seeing the huge diversity and
Yes.
sheer amount of talent in the Black community specifically.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I may, I wanted to share a very short story.
Sure. Sure.
I'm going to try to make it short. So
All good. All
when I
good.
first when I first moved to Chicago, I had never been to a queer accepting Christian church.
Oh,
Where
wow.
people like me could just be there themselves,
Yep.
and people would just accept them and love them for who they are. And I remember when I first moved, it was a very difficult situation because I didn't have a place to stay. So one of my friends, it's hilarious because my friends made fun of me for and kind of made a lot of jokes about this. But I lived in a convent for the first 3 months
Uh-huh.
because I made some friends during my audition. You kind of do around auditions for schools,
Uh-huh.
and so I ended up going to Chicago to study with a great violin teacher there. Her name was Almita Vamos,
Okay.
and she's a very big name in the classical music world
Nice.
when it comes to specifically younger education, but also just throughout. And I was trying to find a place to live, and I met these people during my audition rounds who were Polish, and they went to this church. Um, it was like 2 stops away from O'Hare, and my school was downtown in Chicago, so it would take me about like an hour and a half to get to my school from there.
Wow.
And they asked the father in their congregation in the church that they attended. They were Catholic, so they asked him if we could like strike a deal where I would stay in the convent in a small room. It was like very tiny, and I would have access to this kitchen there. And I every Sunday I would have to play at masses at this church. So that was our kind of exchange. This is how they allowed me to stay there, and I I couldn't talk about my family or myself to these people. So, I was grateful for what I had, but at the
Sure.
same time, I kind of wanted to be like, I just finished my undergraduate degree. I want to, meet other people like me.
Yeah.
And so I found this church that was in on the south side of Chicago. And
Okay.
I was going to name the neighborhood, but I do not remember right now. I'm so sorry.
No
My
worries.
brain is not working properly. But
Sure.
I found this church, and it took me about 2.5 hours to get there. And when I finally got there, I miscalculated because I got lost. I didn't have a phone number, so I couldn't use my phone. And when I would come up to people and ask them, they would usually look at me like I was about to do something to them. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to find it on my own. And by the time I found it, the service was almost over. But it was one of the most heartwarming and touching experiences at a church that I've ever had, because it was a black church filled with mothers and fathers of queer and trans children who were loved unconditionally. And it was like one of the beautiful experiences I've ever had.
Mm.
Um, and I met this black family that basically told me that I can move in with them if I want to. And I was in awe. I didn't end up moving in with them because my mother actually ended up visiting me for 3 months.
Oh
And
wow. Okay.
my mother, I love her, but I did not want to make this family go through that.
Sure.
Mother. And so I didn't end up staying with them. And at the end, but the kind of warmth and acceptance and love that I experienced, it just I could never forget that. And so
That's
um,
love.
like that's the first experience I had in Chicago was that. And there were many horrible experiences that I later ended up having in Chicago as well. But
Sure.
I think that that being my first experience, I cannot have a bad opinion of a city where people like that live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. One thing that I love absorbing everything that you're saying right now. There is a piece that you talk about when we're talking about music, and this also goes back into the slavery days
mm,
where there was nothing but music that actually kept people going. That was, during that time. And when it came from, Africa as far as being the roots, but also there was only like there was only trees, there was only certain wood that you'll be able to play on in order, and there was also certain chants that you will actually sing, or there was just humming that will actually make the music actually happen. You talk about diversity. I love that you talked about the diversity because in music in general, and even in the Latin scene, because I love to teach. I love to teach salsa, right? And when I'm teaching, I just don't teach as far as for a certain group of people. the one thing that we do is we say it's a melting pot. It's for everybody. Doesn't matter what color or race that you are, right? We accept everybody to be able to come into one place to listen to salsa music or dance salsa music together and have a great time. And I think that's one good thing about that I have to say about Chicago, just in general, about just the music. It does bring multiple people together. You know, another thing that you talked about was with the word diversity is how people accept you, right? How people accept you. You know, you and your status doesn't matter as far as with your status. It's about who you are and how talented you are in order for people to be able to accept you once they understand, hey, you know what? We have a violinist. Let's put this violinist here. Let's play some Latin music, right? Or we have a violinist here. Let's play some country music or let's classical music. And it's a diverse journey, diversified journey for that person or that artist as well too. And that's one thing that really sticks out, a lot whenever I hear about music is the diversity, but also the dancing that's behind it that makes it a big point in someone's life, especially mine. So man, Artem, I'm having a good time with you, man. I mean, I'm in like deep conversation. And of course, we got to take another break because, it just keeps getting deep, baby. It keeps getting deep. Are you having a good time?
Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
No
I'm so
problem,
grateful.
man. No problem. All right, stand by. We got to do something called NASCAR Moments. NASCAR Moments, everybody. Ooh, wait. You already know that the Rico No Suave show is affiliated with NASCAR. So when we actually have the NASCAR Moments, it's all about the winners, right? It's all about the winners, but it's also about the history and great moments of NASCAR itself. So I have to talk about this gentleman here. His name is Ryan Blaney. He is the champion. He is the champion of the 2023 Phoenix. Let's bring his picture up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is the champion, everybody. He is the champion. And I want to say a little bit about him. Ryan Blaney drives the number 12 team Penske Ford Mustang. His sixth full season driving for team owner Roger Penske. Blaney is in his eighth full-time NASCAR Cup Series season and has visited Victory Lane 10 times, winning his first Pocono Raceway in 2017 and most recently at Martinsville Speedway in 2023 to advance to his first championship. Man, Blaney went to claim the 2023 Cup title following a runner-up finish at Phoenix Raceway. The championship is Blaney's first at the Cup level. Blaney also has an exhibition win from 2022 All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway. Blaney has 7 career wins in the NASCAR Series and 4 in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Guys, I want to say this is another great NASCAR moment for you guys to be able to clap your hands because Discount Tire, as you can see, Discount Tires represent. That's where I get my tires at. I have to say, that's where I get my tires at. So congratulations to another NASCAR moment for my man Ryan Blaney for actually winning once again 2023. All right, everybody, let's get back to my man Artem. Let's get it on. Artem, you still with me?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, let me bring you back on the screen. Yeah, let's see. We get my man back on the screen. All right. Yeah, there we go. Hey, even though we was in the dark, we still in the light, Artem. I'm just letting you know.
Yes.
Hey, man, so we got a few more minutes, of course, but I do want to talk about your accolades, and because of where you are and what you've been through, you have won a lot of competitions. You had a lot of awards as well, too. And, if we named them all right now, it's going to be the end of the show, because you have made a name for yourself as an artist, as a violinist. Is there any one of those competitions that really stands out to you where you was like, man, I tried so hard to get in this competition and I played so hard to be able to win this competition. Is any of the competitions that you have actually won actually stands out to you?
Um, I mean, they're all very different, and they all have very different meaning to me. And I would say that the first competition that I won is probably um, the, the biggest one for me, because I won it when I was 8 years old. I had just started violin about 2 years before that, and it was the very first competition where I actually got money for it, and it
Wow.
was a monthly stipend that was paid to my family, and that's how I started helping my family financially. So all the other competitions that followed were also mainly just to help my family, and often to buy new strings for my violin.
Yeah.
To so we had it pretty rough when I was growing up, and
Sure.
I think I sent you my bio, and
Yep.
at some point, for me to afford my lessons, we had to, I used to pick through dumpsters as a child, so we
Wow.
could collect all these, tin cans
Yep.
and glass bottles, so we can collect them and, get some money in exchange. And, for me, I think that one is the most important one because it kind of started the whole thing.
Sure.
And there were others that, like for example, I had a competition in Tallinn that I placed third in that one because, um, you know, it was kind of a very political situation, and the entire audience actually was very mad, and they had to delay the final performance because everyone in the audience didn't agree with the decision of the judges. So
Wow.
there were even moments like that, but it kind of introduced me to the world of classical music, where I think a lot of people who might not know this about classical music, it is extremely political, just like many other things that we have in our lives.
Sure.
Um, and it is very much influenced by who you know, and whether your country is currently liked or not by certain people. You
Yeah.
know, so it's complicated in that sense, but at the same time, I started realizing very quickly where where I was in that sense.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, it does. Did the competitions that, well, congratulations on that. At an age of 8, I mean, to be able to win money, if I was 8 and I won money, Artem, I probably would be like, I'm rich, and I
How I
think,
felt.
but I think that was so cool because it was at a right time where you guys needed the money and you won this competition because of your talent. Um, the question I did have for you also, what is the competition like when you said something about political, and yeah, it's when I think about political, I think about people having their favorites, right? They have their favorite person that they actually want to win, and then they try to pick on a person that's really trying, and they know how good that the person that's on the runner up, how good that they are, and they try to find every fault that they can to make sure that whoever they want to win wins, right? When we're talking about the political aspects of and the competition for classical and so disciplined that it is, what is the steps in regards to what you need to prove to the judges in regards to how good you are?
Mm. Um, this is a great question because for the longest time, I've struggled myself with realizing what do I want to do with my music.
Yeah.
And because when you go into the classical music world, there is I I often felt like like I was inadequate, but at the
Yeah.
same time, there were a lot of people telling me that I was great. And so it's kind of a very confusing place to be in, where you think that, oh, but I'm not as good as this person, or
Yeah.
I didn't play everything perfectly and I made mistakes and all that stuff, which brings up another conversation about the subjectivity or objectivity of art,
Yeah.
and how who is looking at what, and I focus on how art makes us feel.
Yeah.
um, not necessarily whether something was perfect or not, right? And so, and this is something, if I may plug this a little bit, I started
Sure.
a program this last January. Sorry, it feels like this year has been a really long, really long year. So I realized it was only this January. So I started a program in West Adams, and this is a place where I help around with a bookstore from time to time. And this is a bookstore that is mainly used by the community as a resource for food distribution, and we help. There's a lot of people who are really struggling and who I can really relate to, because so many people right now are really suffering in this country from inflation and from job insecurity and a lot of different things. And so we really try to provide the space for this community where they can go and find things that they might need, like maybe it's toothpaste, or maybe it's free masks, or
Hmm.
something like this, or sometimes we have clothing distribution. So I started a free music program where we just get together, and I realized that to me what was really helpful when I was a child, that really helped me learn music better, is knowing the context of why something is the way that it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I noticed that a lot of the white Americans, when I talked to them, they weren't as interested in knowing the truth of like where something came from. Like, for example, one of the first questions that I asked the students that showed up to these classes to learn violin and music, and it's called the People's Ensemble, which is why I gave you the other handle for Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the project that I'm currently involved with in West Adams in Los Angeles.
Nice.
So there, one of the first questions that I ask people, I ask them, "Do you know why the piano keys are those colors?" And so I'm going to ask you the same question, and um, like your best guess if you want.
My father will haunt me because he told me the reason why the keys are black and white. And I don't remember. I'm gonna be honest,
Okay,
and he will
so
hate me right now.
yeah,
Oh, he will hate me right now.
so
Well, rest in peace to my dad. But
don't worry about it. So
yeah.
and this is actually so for most of my life, I was told that I have a horrible memory. And this is something that I heard from all of my teachers, from like my family. They would
Uh-huh.
always be like, Artem, you have such a bad memory, And I realized that often it is connected to trauma, and often, when we can't remember something, it's because we don't quite know the context, and we don't
Yeah.
quite know why something is the way that it is.
Sure.
And so, and I think after I tell you why the keys are those colors, you might never forget it.
Yep. Okay.
And this is directly related to the colonization of Africa,
Mm-hmm.
which
Okay.
is now making more sense when you think about ivory and ebony,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
When you think about rich, powerful European white people wanting to show off to each other how rich they are, right?
Okay.
And it will even make more sense if I tell you that the colors were actually reversed before. So the big keys used to be black because ebony
Wow.
was more expensive, or yeah, sorry, because ivory is more expensive than ebony, and then they reversed them because some of the richer people in the European court, they wanted to be like, look how rich I am that I can afford all of the big keys being made completely out of ivory. So,
Wow.
which is also, I have my violin right here. So this also, I like to show a violin
Uh-huh.
and explain that if you look at all of this, so this is all wood, right? So this
Yep.
part called the fingerboard is made out of ebony. It's still to this day made out of ebony that is sourced from Africa. So, you know, everything that I'm holding in my hand, most of the like really good violins, they have some kind of a. So my this bow is not a great bow. It's the teaching bow that I use, which is why it has tapes. But um, the stick of the bow, some of the best bows in the world, are made from Pernambuco. Pernambuco is a bamboo that grows in the Amazon rainforest, and
Mm.
for the longest time, part of the reason why the Amazon rainforest was being going through deforestation, specifically in like 18 and 1900s, is because a lot of musicians in Europe wanted to have the best bow possible. And Pernambuco is actually toxic to touch unless it's covered by lacquer, which
Yeah.
is, so a lot of bow makers actually develop diseases with their skin and their hands. And for the longest time, these forests of Pernambuco, this bamboo, were completely decimated, which is what caused a lot of indigenous people in Brazil to, or what is known as Brazil, to rise up and say that we need some kind of a protection.
Yeah.
So our habitat is not being destroyed. And
Right.
so I think it's really interesting to think of classical music in that aspect, how it relates to history in total.
Yes.
That it's not just like out of context and just it just happens because it happens. So yeah, and this is how I teach violin to my students. I tell them that the strings used to be made out of dried guts of animals. So
Wow.
you know, and right now they're all made by hand, but still, when you think about the kind of labor that goes into all of this, I feel
Yes.
like a lot of my younger students have a much better appreciation. And now, one of the things that really shocked me when I started teaching in North America is that some kids would just throw their violins everywhere, you know. And I remember when I got my violin, I didn't have a case because we were too poor. It was wrapped in newspaper, and I remember it was like the most precious thing to me, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like protecting it, and making sure that it wasn't anywhere in the way for anyone to like accidentally sit on it, you know. And I started kind of thinking, why is this the way? And I realized that we live in a culture and a society where we're not taught to appreciate things, and we think of everything as disposable and
Yep.
replaceable,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I think that this is something that is really interesting and important to me. So, sometimes I struggle in the classical sphere because um, a lot of people don't like to have these conversations, you
Yeah.
know, and they don't really see them as important. And, they don't realize that most things that are around us are political and are tied to something that happened in history.
You know,
So,
I really love what you're actually, man, I'm you telling me about, how things were actually made. And one thing that I have to say that's one thing that I always love about being humble about when things are handmade. When I
mm,
say things are actually handmade, that it's from either the earth or it's from part of the earth that's actually being built by hand.
mhm,
When you're actually young and you have, it's like, when I was a kid, I had a toy, a Tonka toy, and I thought that Tonka toy was the best thing ever, right? And that Tonka toy sat on my desk, and I cleaned that Tonka toy all the time. A lot of people don't know about this. Even my producers don't even know about this. And when I had this Tonka toy, I wanted to make sure that that Tonka toy was never broken at all. That was the best thing that I ever had. When you're talking about something of a violin or an instrument, you're taking it as a souvenir that you either receive from someone and you know how precious that it is for you. And that's what life is about. As far as for whatever that you have, I'm telling you, I still think about my Tonka toy to this day because my brother's broke it. So and
no,
I ain't like that, but but I still love that toy. But I totally get where you're coming from when it comes to something handmade, something precious that's actually for you. Now you do have a violin, and I don't know if you want to do this. Well, I'm gonna see if I can put you on the spot on this one. Can you play us a quick tune on your violin for the audience to hear?
of course, yeah. I was
Let's
kind
go.
of prepared. But if I have a few seconds to say something, just
Sure,
I promise I will keep it short,
no problem, no
so I
problem.
can fit in my playing. But I think that if there's one thing that I would like listeners to take away from my story is that I hope that they get to. make more things by hand and experience things and experience art more, um, which I'm sure there already are. But I feel like, again, we live in a society where a lot of things are commercially produced and produced in factories.
Yeah.
And it takes away from this human experience of something actually being made by hand, and something actually being made by a human being. And this teaches us, I feel like art is very important because it teaches us what it means to be a human being, right?
Yeah.
What it really, like how much it actually takes to make something. And it really
Yes.
teaches us this appreciation for other people's work and for
Yeah.
what they do. So
I like that.
I'm gonna play a little something for you all.
Thank you so much.
So this is from this is my violin that I brought from Russia. It's very old, and it was bought by my parents. And they told me if I
right.
don't become a professional violinist, that I need to return it.
Do you have a name for your violins?
I don't have one for this one, so
No.
I don't
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't grow up with naming my instruments. But maybe someday we'll get a name.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
I'll stop right there.
Yeah, bravo, bravo,
Thank you.
bravo.
So
Flowers,
this is
flowers, flowers.
thank you. This is just a little excerpt of I just performed in Cuernavaca in Morelos,
Yes.
in Mexico,
Yeah,
and
Cuernavaca.
it was a wonderful experience. This is part of this is a cadenza from Brahms's violin concerto, and
Okay.
it was the first ever classical music performance in Cuernavaca by
Nice.
their symphony orchestra, comprised of very recent music um, students. For the last 7 years, they've been studying music, and so this was a huge feat for them to learn this really difficult piece.
Wow.
And the reason why I chose it is because I wanted to highlight how much folk music from non-white Europeans and from all over the world, from Black and Indigenous cultures,
Yeah,
there is actually in classical music. Um,
that's
and
beautiful.
so Brahms's music was influenced by Romani people who are originally from India. So
Okay.
they are a nomadic tribe from India who they're also known by the derogatory term gypsy,
Yep.
but
Mm,
Romani is what we should be using. And
right.
this is their music. It was all of this music was inspired by them, and a lot of
Wow.
melodies were taken. So if you want, I can also include a little link to that performance. It just happened last week, not this last weekend, but a weekend before. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
so if you can actually include that, because I have something for you, because I know we have to go, and like I said, man, I wish we had more time, but I definitely going to
thank
have
you.
you back on the show. But I do have something for you, because when we call gems around the world, that is you. You are a gem around the world. So I have a T-shirt for you. I have something that's called the Rico No Suave Show shirt.
Oh
I
wow,
have this for
thank you
you.
so much.
This is for you, and I want you to play that violin with this shirt on one day, and I want you to videotape this, because I want the world to know how great you are. Right? I want people to know this shirt is also representation of your struggles what you went through in the barrio, in what you did as far as with your mom and also with your 5 brothers as well too. And sorry that your parents couldn't get a girl in there, but it's all about the boys, mama and dad. But thank you so much for bringing him, Artem, in the life of this world. I have to say, Artem, I'm lost for words because I'm so touched in regards to everything that you had to go through and how you overcame and being successful and also giving back. Giving back to the community is one of the biggest things that this world needs. We need more kind people like yourself. We need more people like you teaching classical music and keeping it diversified. You know, I love that you're so diversified that you understand what cultures needs to be recognized in the world itself. And we appreciate you because of that. So with that said, sir, this shirt is definitely for you. Of course, I'll be sending this to you, and I appreciate you being on the show. So welcome to the team, baby. Welcome to the team.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we're going to put up your social media as well. I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, no, I said I appreciate it and so honored to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We're going to put up your social media real quick because we got to let people know how they can find you and also click on your links as far as on YouTube. So make sure, everybody, make sure you go to ARTDKFOM, right? That's on Instagram, perfect. Everybody. So make sure you go there. Here's the next one. It's called People's Ensemble. Yes. So make sure you guys go ahead and please follow my man Artem because he's doing great things for the community, but he's also doing great things from the heart. And as you can see, he plays with passion. So make sure you guys go ahead and check him out. Artem, it's been a pleasure, my man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
I had a great time with you, man. And once again, we'll keep in touch, man. And then I'll make sure that I get this sent over to you. But I want to thank you so much. But keep doing what you're doing. You know what? Overcome all of your struggles. Anything that's in the way, don't listen to that noise. You keep moving forward. You be you, because we got the love here from Chicago. All right?
Thank you. And I hope to visit you in Chicago someday, maybe right from the studio. So
let's go. Let's go. Yeah, you let me know when you're here, okay. And then I'll make sure. But I'll let you know if I'm in LA as well, too. So we're going to be coming back to LA as well. So, you know, I'll let you know when I am there, that the crew is there, and we'll make it happen. OK.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, put your hands together for none other than my man, Artem Kolesov. All right. All right, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself for today, man. I had a great time as far as with my guy Artem, and please make sure you go and support him because this right here was deep. This right here, as far as understanding the struggles and where he had to overcome and where he had to come to be as successful as he is right now in all of the competitions as well. So thank you guys so much for actually being on the show. We got to get out of here, but I got to show you our social media, everybody. Our social media is at www.thericonosuaveshow.com. Everybody, make sure you go to our website. Please make sure you go to our website, find out everything about us. We have archives as well, too, so make sure you go ahead and check us out there. Here's the next one, everyone. Boom. Instagram. Yes, at Instagram, everybody. It's at Rico No Suave Show. Make sure you go there and follow us. Do it now. All right, here's our next one. You know, we left and came back. I say it every week. Forget about it. Rico No Suave Show, everybody. Make sure you go and like and love everything we're doing on Facebook. All right, here is our next one. We need subscribers. You love to subscribe, so go ahead and subscribe to our channel at Rico No Suave Show, everybody. We'll have our archives there as well, too, and we also upload shorts and other videos as well. Last but not least, we have our Mixcloud. Yeah, baby. You're driving in the car and you're like, I want to listen to Rico No Suave. Go ahead and do it at mixcloud.com/Rico No Suave Show. Make sure you go ahead and do that and follow us there. All right, everybody, we got to get out of here, but I want to thank you guys so much for actually being on the show with me today and also the rest of the crew. But until next time, everybody, as we end off the show, just like this.